What's up guys, I'm randomfrankp, got another gaming keyboard on deck for you guys today. We're going to be checking out the CoolerMaster Mk850, not to be confused with the Logitech Mk850 keyboard. Kind of confusing, but this keyboard has Aimpad technology giving us analog input, which is definitely pretty cool. Has some great features, but not without a few things leaving me scratching my head. We'll check it all out, more after this. If you're like me, you're tired of gaming headsets and their lackluster mics. But don't worry, you can check out the Anvil ModMic 850 and the ModMic Wireless. Both options provide great sounding audio from a detachable mic that you can attach to any pair of headphones or a headset. So this whole time you've been hearing the mic with the ModMic 5, or you can pick up the wireless option which you're hearing now. So if your headset has a crappy mic as it is, you could ditch that, attach one of these, and still have a completely wireless headset. Nothing like this really exists, which is why I love it. If you want to check it out, I'll put a link for you in the description down below. Alright, so jumping back in, CoolerMaster has been doing some pretty cool stuff lately with their peripherals, and this keyboard came out just a few weeks ago and has a few tricks up its sleeve, so I wanted to get my hands on it, yes, literally, and check it out for you guys. Taking a look at the Mk850, it does have this obvious like gamer-esque look to it, has these angular edges, different finishes, which to some people won't be a big deal honestly. It is made of a brushed aluminum frame with a glossy plastic at the top and the bottom side of the keyboard, and having glossy plastic on a keyboard that you're constantly touching with your hands just never made much sense to me, even if it is a small portion up top. Then inside the box they also include 18 purple accent keycaps and a keycap puller. As for some key features, on the top of the keyboard you have non-illuminated dedicated media keys with an LED light toggle button. Next to that are two precision wheels, and whew, is that right, very precise. So the left one is a brightness wheel and the right one is for volume. When they say precision, you have to really turn this thing to make some progress. And usually that's a good thing for very minor changes, but if you're trying to go from like volume 10 to 100, you have to really quickly turn this thing up, then wait for the next 15 seconds for it to catch up as you slowly watch it increase by 2 increments. Unfortunately, at the time, there is no way to change that. And I do think having a brightness wheel is kind of pointless because like every keyboard ever, you can just also use the function and the arrow keys, but inside the software, you can go in and change what those wheels do, so that's good. We do have the included magnetic wrist rest as well, which is definitely nice and comfy. Always good to have one of these. On the back side, you have 2 USB pass-throughs, good for plugging in flash drives or a mouse. And interestingly, this is the only keyboard I've ever seen that does have 2 pass-throughs, but terminates in just 1 USB output. Usually you see at least 2 USBs, but here we only have 1, which is pretty cool. On top of that, the USB Type-C cable is removable. On the back side, we have left, center, and right kind of routing channels, if you will, for cable management. But these literally don't do anything because the cable just does not stick in here at all, so doesn't do anything at all, as you can see. And we also have 2 flip out feet to elevate its backside. Moving on to the left side of the keyboard, we have 5 dedicated macro keys. Psych, that would be cool though. These are actually Aimpad function keys, so more so like profile keys. And Aimpad is going to be the big selling point to this keyboard. It's a third-party technology that gives analog input to your keyboard, but only in the QWER ASDF keys, so we're limited to just those 8. Now this isn't the first time you've seen something like this. Last year I reviewed the Wooting 1 analog keyboard. Now we're getting this similar analog technology with CoolerMaster and their collaboration with Aimpad. So back to those 5 keys. M1 is your standard keyboard layout. M2 is for enabling FPS mode, so W, A, S, and D are gonna act like, a joystick for analog movement. M3 is a driving and flying mode, where W and S are the control triggers for like gas and braking. M4 is an advanced flying mode layout, and then M5 is a speed mode, they say, where QWER ASDF keys just actuate right as you press them. One thing that's pretty annoying, despite whatever RGB effect or color you have going on in your keyboard, the MRO is still going to illuminate white depending on which profile you're on. I'll give you a closer look at that in a minute when we go over the software, but it's kind of odd that in some games like GTA 5, where when you're walking around in the city, you have to have M2 enabled for walking. But then if you want to drive, drive a car or get in a plane to fly around, you have to press M3. So it's kind of bizarre to switch between the 2 profiles while you're playing a game. Just not too intuitive in GTA 5 at least, but there are other games where it works very well in, and I'll show you that now. So this is your normal movement speed in Overwatch, but with Aimpad control, you can see the lighter I press on a key to walk, the slower I'm actually walking in game, achieving speeds and precise movements that are just not possible with other keyboards, and that's the big advantage. And especially in an FPS game where you might want to slowly peek around a corner or something, you can definitely appreciate this precise movement versus just the standard walking speed from pressing W on a regular keyboard. Another awesome example is going to be in CSGO. So you can see here I'm walking slower, and when I shoot, that circle around my bullet represents the overall spread. So when I'm walking slower, it's giving me a more controlled spray, which then is going to result in more accurate shooting. Then with a regular keyboard, when you walk forward and start shooting, the spray is just completely uncontrollable, goes everywhere. And even if you control walk, which gives you kind of a slower movement in the game, it's still just nowhere as controlled as it was when I was using the Mk850. And this is all possible with the cherry red switches used in this keyboard. Odds are you're familiar with reds, they're nice and linear, and they work best with analog input keyboards because they're light at 45 Newtons force, and since they are linear, it's going to give you better control of how hard or how light you're actually pressing down without a tactile bump throwing you off. And I know you're waiting for it, we'll do a sound test now of these cherry red switches. Next up, we'll dive into the software. Before we even do that, one thing that's pretty cool is you don't technically even need software. Everything can be controlled and managed just on the keyboard itself, and there's onboard storage. Function F1 through 4 let you cycle colors. Function 5 through 8 let you cycle between the effects and the lighting modes. Function 9 through 12 is your macro LED recording and deleting macros, while function print screen, scroll lock, and pause are looping macros, an infinite macro loop, and then repeating macros. Sounds kind of repetitive. Then if you want to change your actual Aimpad control, that can be done by the row of 3 keys on the top right. Now turn this on and off, and then you can adjust the sensitivity here. But obviously everything's going to be more simple when it's right in front of you with the Portal software. And the first tab is going to be for that Aimpad control. This is what I was showing you before. It lets you change up what the 8 key inputs are, plus the sensitivity level from the keys from level 1 to 8. 1 being less sensitive, 8 being very. Next is the lighting tab with all the different lighting effects. There's actually a pretty decent amount here going on, so I'll run through them real quick to kind of give you an idea of how the RGB lighting effects look. You can do things like, combine different zones, do multi-layering to combine different effects even, and obviously you can change up the speed and direction of certain effects as well. Now I do want to note that the light flickering you're seeing is just the way the lights are kind of being picked up by the camera. It's not like this in real life. The next tab is going to be key mapping and changing up what those keys actually do. So for example, like I said earlier, if you want to change the brightness wheel to be other function, any other function that would make more sense, you can do that here with any key on the keyboard minus the function and M1 through 5 keys. Then you have the macro tab, which is obviously for creating macros, and then the profile tab for switching between one of the 4 profiles that can be stored on the board. Now, as you've seen, the software is okay for what it is, but it's just very bland. There's so much wasted space, I think. It's very boring just having, a color-coded box around a key, and then having like 90% of the software being just empty gray space. Then you saw when I was remapping keys, those drop-down menus are terribly squished under the reassignment tab. Again, just like there's so much actual screen being unused here, it's just very empty. It's 2019, there's really no excuse for a 2001 looking interface. Alright, so wrapping this all up with a breakdown on my thoughts of the Mk850, Aimpad is definitely pretty cool. That technology with the analog inputs does kind of change the way you game and gives you an advantage for those slow, precise movements. It makes like driving around in some games a lot easier. Definitely a fan of that, but it's just kind of strange to me that it's limited to just those 8 keys. Why not have it in the entire keyboard, not just 8 keys? On top of that, you have a lot of great RGB lighting effects. There's tons of customizing and great features on this keyboard. But then it starts to go downhill. The software is definitely in need of a modern touch. It's just so bland and empty, so that needs to be improved, I think. Those precision wheels, speaking of needing to be improved, could definitely use some sort of sensitivity control because it's just so lagging. You have to wait for 10 seconds for you to, quickly adjust everything, so that could be adjusted. And I do think overall that the keyboard itself is just trying too hard to be a gaming keyboard, if that makes sense. This is another example where it could use a more modern touch, make it just more a simple 2019 keyboard without having to scream gamer in your face. On top of that, the biggest con of them all, I think, is going to be the price point. $200. And everyone runs away screaming and scared. I know, that's a lot of money. You look at the competition, the Razer Huntsman Elite, $200 also. The K95 Platinum was $200 when it launched, but that's since gone down in price a lot. That launched over 2 years ago. So you're up there with that, elite competition with the top tier gaming keyboards out there from the big gaming companies. But you look at the Wooting One, like I talked about, the other analog keyboard. That is, the entire keyboard has analog keys, and that's only $140, I believe. And that does have that more simple, modern look to it. So $200 is a lot to being limited to the main selling technology here in just 8 of the keys. So if someone's trying to buy this keyboard, they're not buying it because it's just the latest and greatest from CoolerMaster. They're buying it because they want that Aimpad technology. So they're limiting their market and then limiting the product to just 8 keys. Definitely a tough sale and tough for me to recommend at that price. It's just way too much money and too many personal complaints on my end. And guys, that'll wrap it up for my review of the CoolerMaster Mk850 keyboard. Hope you enjoyed. If you still want to check it out, I'll put a link for you in the description down below. If you like this review, give it a thumbs up to show your support. Feel free to follow me on Twitter at randomfrankp. And lastly, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. Well, I'm Random Frank P. Hope you enjoyed. Have a good day.